Hey, this is Mary Chibb with Bentley Systems, back to talk more about the railing tool in OpenBuildings Designer. Continuing with my kit of parts for railings, today I'm going to talk about ends for rails. Since rails are extruded from a 2D profile, they will always have a flat or cut-off end at the start and finish of the railing. Of course, you may want something different on the end of a rail cap or handrail, and for this we will use a 3D cell. I have created a Railing Ends project cell library. Remember that the naming of these cell libraries is important. This one, for instance, needs to start with Railing Ends, no spaces. The default configuration is set to find Railing Ends in any library in the workspace or workset that starts with Railing Ends. Each end created will be a 3D model within this file or cell library. I'm going to start by creating a simple end for my elliptical cap profile. I will create a new model for the cell. Ends will often need a left and a right component, so we'll start with the left. Since ends are typically an extension of a rail profile, it might be a good idea to reference the rail profile as a first step. Note that the referenced profile is a 2D model and attaches to the XY or the top plane. Now, we will want to maintain the same origin, but we do want to get our profile rotated to the YZ plane before we extrude it. I'll right press and select Rotate Reference. I'll set the method to angles and rotate 90 degrees about the X and also the Y axis. I want to be sure that my AccuDraw is rotated to the top orientation and then select the origin as the rotation point. Now the profile is in the correct plane to get extruded. Then I will simply copy the profile into the model, and then detach the reference. Now I'm going to switch to the modeling workflow to use some of the solids modeling tools. Since I just want to create a rounded end to the rail cap, I'm going to use the Revolve tool. But in order to do that, I first need to cut the profile in half. Now there are several ways you could do this, but I'm just going to draw a line down the middle. And then use the Region tool to create a new shape by flooding the area. Now that I have the profile, I will use the Revolve tool and rotate 180 degrees about the center axis. A reset completes the action. Now let's talk a minute about the origin of end cells. I need this origin to align with my profile in terms of the vertical and horizontal offset, which it does. But I also need to be aware of where it will be placed relative to the end of the railing. I will talk about this in more detail when I cover post, but railing ends align their origin at the outer edge of the post or rail, not the center of the post, while rails sometimes only extend to the center line of the post. This would leave you with a gap between your rail cap and your rail end. You can overcome this by simply extending the rail end to the other side of the origin to cover that gap. Now, this might take a little testing to get right, but I know that I need to extend my end by 37.5 millimeters to cover that gap, based on the post that I'm going to use. So I will use the extrude tool to extrude the face of the solid by the distance needed. I may also want to unite my solids so that I have a single piece of geometry. And very important, I want to convert this to a solid instead of the parametric solid I currently have. The element needs to be a smart solid or a primitive solid to be used by the railing tool. Currently, my geometry is on the default level. For 3D cells, I prefer to add the family and part information to the parts of the cell, rather than setting it in the railing settings. This is particularly true when you have a cell that might have multiple different parts with different materials. The family and part used will depend on your cell and your regional data set. I'm going to use specialty interior material wood, and then use apply part to apply that part to my geometry. Okay, so that is the left end. I'm going to copy this model and create the right end. All I need to do is mirror the geometry about the origin from the left to the right. Now, before I finish, let me show you a couple of examples of some of the other ends I have created. This one is simply an extruded round profile with a chrome material that could be added at the end of a wood rail, for instance. This is a similar extrusion along a path in order to create an end that turns back towards a wall. This one uses the elliptical profile again, but extrudes it along a path while also scaling the profile to create a more decorative end condition. And finally, I have also created a more elaborate end condition that includes the post in order to have more control over the ends of the handrail. This would be used in place of a start or end post. So now that we have some end conditions, we are almost finished with our kit of parts. We just have posts left to cover, and then we will start assembling some railings.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.